A little less than 24 hours away from Texas taking on Iowa State in Ames for maybe the last time. What's up, guys? BK, Brad Kellner. Today is Friday, November 5th, 2021. A happy Friday to you and yours. If you're watching this on Saturday, even better. It is game day. A happy Saturday to you and yours. And if you're watching this any day after that, well, you can either criticize me or applaud me for my prediction for the Longhorns and the Cyclones, but the video will be a little bit outdated. Texas and Iowa State, 6:30 tomorrow on FS1. No Brando and Tillman on the call. I always get a little nervous whenever I see that the Longhorns are playing on FS1. I always get scared that we're going to get stuck with Tim Brando and Spencer Tillman. We don't have to worry about that tomorrow. Aaron Goldsmith and Mark Helfrich on the call tomorrow night. And a night game for Texas, breaking up a seemingly unbreakable streak of 11 a.m. kicks for the Texas Longhorns. So you'll have a little bit more time to prepare yourself for Texas and Iowa State. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. The Longhorns, of course, trying to snap their 3-game losing streak. The 3 losses, incredibly egregious. Double-digit second-half leads in all 3. And, of course, the Longhorns came up short against Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. Y'all know that. Sorry for the trip down memory lane. It's been a disappointing year for Texas. There's no doubt about that. It's been as disappointing, maybe even more disappointing of a year for Iowa State. Iowa State right now, they're 5-3. They're 3-2 in conference play, so they're a game ahead of Texas in the Big 12 standings. But if y'all remember, Iowa State started the year in the top 10. Iowa State was expected to not only compete for the Big 12 championship this year, but also potentially compete for a spot in the college football playoff. And neither of those things are really happening. They still technically have a shot to win the Big 12, but they're tied for, I believe, 4th right now. Oklahoma's unbeaten at the top. You've got Oklahoma State and Baylor with 1 loss apiece, and then Iowa State sitting there at 3-2. The losses for the Cyclones this year, they lost to Iowa in the non-con. They lose that game every year. They lost to Baylor in Waco by 2, and they lost last week at West Virginia 37-30. So 5-3 Iowa State. They're coming in off of a loss. If you're a Texas fan, you know how much the Longhorns have struggled with Iowa State in recent years. Iowa State has won each of the last 2 matchups. They've been decided by a total of 5 points. The game last year in Austin, well, Tom Herman special, but kind of felt like a Steve Sarkisian game. The Longhorns had a double-digit second-half lead in Austin against Iowa State in a game that the winner was likely going on to the Big 12 championship game, and the Longhorns couldn't hold the lead. There was also a bad fake punt in that game, too, that went against the Longhorns. Texas came up short and lost a heartbreaker to the Cyclones, and for a lot of people, that was the dagger for Tom Herman. But yeah, Iowa State, Matt Campbell has been a problem for Texas in the last few years. Both teams play a ton of one-score games. The line in this one, Iowa State a 6.5-point favorite at the time I'm recording this video, which is around 1 o'clock on Friday. The line's been anywhere from 6 to 7 throughout the majority of the week. So both of these teams play a ton of one-score games, more one-score games for Texas and Iowa State in the last 4 years than any teams in the Big 12. 31 for Texas, 28 for Iowa State. So reason to believe that this one's going to be close. These teams play a lot of one-possession games, and the last 2 times they've met, once again, the final scores have been decided by a total of 5 points. I'm nervous about this one, guys. I don't know how you can't be nervous if you're a Texas fan. Like, even if the Longhorns jump out to a 21-0 lead tomorrow, I don't know how you can feel good about that, considering what we've seen over the last few weeks from this team. But Iowa State's been very good in conference play at home. I mentioned their 2 conference losses this year, both away from Ames. Iowa State has a 9-game home conference win streak, which is the longest active streak in the Big 12. And Brock Purdy, pump fake Purdy, still there. Believe it or not, he's 14-1 at home in his career. Not too shabby. So Iowa State's been better at Jack Trice. Brock Purdy has been better at Jack Trice as well. And, of course, the last time the Longhorns were in Ames, they came up short. Brock Purdy, not the best player on that Iowa State offense. It's still Breece Hall. I think y'all know that. Breece Hall's a stud. He's been a stud for a number of years now. One of the best running backs in all of college football. You'll have 2 of the best running backs in the country on the same field tomorrow. Breece Hall actually leads the Big 12 in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. So statistically, having a better year than Bijan Robinson. 5 100-yard games for Breece Hall this year. He's a stud. He makes people miss, and all the Texas rush defense has been not good at times this year. And they've really struggled down the stretch in each of the last 3 games. Every aspect of Texas has been bad in fourth quarters recently. They've been outscored 55-10 in their last 3 fourth quarters. But a big part of why the Longhorns' defense has struggled as badly as it has in second halves of games in recent weeks is, well, they haven't been able to get off the field. They haven't been able to stop the run. Teams are averaging, I think, 8.5 yards per carry in the fourth quarter against Texas in the last 3 games. So Breece Hall's a stud. He's probably a better running back than any of the running backs that Texas has seen in this 3-game losing streak. So he is going to be a problem. The pass game for Iowa State, inconsistent. Xavier Hutchinson, their best receiver, leads the Big 12 in receptions. I think he's 5th in receiving yards. He's a solid player. They get him the ball a lot. Charlie Kolar is still there, the tight end. Feels like he's also been there forever. Not putting up gaudy numbers this year, but still really solid, still an impact player, and still wreaks some havoc in the middle of a defense. Tariq Milton, their big deep play threat, had 1 catch last week against West Virginia for 68 yards. I think he had a big catch against Texas last year, too. That's kind of what he does. They'll send him deep a couple of times a game and hope they can hit on a big shot. And, well, if you've watched Texas play defense this year, you know this defense has been susceptible to the big play a time or two. In terms of the trenches, you guys know how I feel about the trenches. Every game is won and lost in the trenches. That's the matchup of disappointment between these two teams. Iowa State's offensive line returned all 5 starters from last year, and it was a really good offensive line in 2020. They've been really bad this year in 2021. They've actually benched their left tackle a couple of weeks ago, and they just haven't been that consistent of a group this year. Meanwhile, most people thought, including myself, thought that Texas's defensive line was going to be the strength of this defense, maybe the strength of the team, and that hasn't quite been the case. So kind of a matchup of disappointment up front. But a big key to the game is going to be who can establish the run game. Can Iowa State establish Breece Hall? If so, they're going to win. Can Texas establish Bijan? Much better than they've established Bijan in recent weeks. And Bijan's coming off his worst performance in a Texas uniform with the game against Baylor. If Texas can establish him, the Longhorns have a good chance to spring this upset on the road. Iowa State's defense is good. Very good. They're not as good as Oklahoma State's or Baylor's, but they're 3rd in scoring defense in the conference. They're 1st in total defense in the Big 12. They're top 25 in SP+, so the efficiency metrics likes Iowa State a lot, and that's kind of bad news for Texas. The 3 best SP+ defenses the Longhorns have played this year, the Longhorns are averaging 318 yards per game and 5 yards per play. In the other 5 games against much weaker defenses, the Horns are averaging 525 yards per game and nearly 8 yards per play. So this will be a tough test for Texas. You know Iowa State, John Haycock, their defensive coordinator, they're going to sell out to try to stop the run. I mean, that's the recipe. That's the blueprint. That's how you beat Texas. Contain Bijan, make the Texas passing game beat you. And well, it just hasn't been good enough or consistent enough this year to go out and do that. Iowa State, 2nd in the conference in terms of rush defense. They're only giving up 3 yards per carry. Letty Brown did have a good day against Iowa State last week, though. He went for over 100, so maybe a good sign. But Iowa State did not have Mike Rose, who was the conference player of the year in 2020, the best linebacker for the Cyclones, trending towards playing at the time of recording this video. I think he's questionable, but the belief is he's going to be out there for the Cyclones. Long hair linebacker. Dude's a beast. He's all over the field. So that will probably help Iowa State rush defense and pass defense, too, for that matter. So, but yeah, they're going to do what Baylor did, sell out and stop the run and make Casey Thompson and these very inconsistent Texas wide receivers beat you. No Jordan Whittington. Can Joshua Moore have a bounce-back game? Reports that he got into it with Steve Sarkisian during practice this week. There was a thought that maybe he wouldn't be on the team anymore. He's playing, by all accounts. He's available for all 4 quarters tomorrow. Sark said that in his press conference yesterday. We'll see what happens. Texas needs to be able to throw the ball efficiently and effectively to win this game. West Virginia did that against Iowa State last week. Jarrett Dagey, who's not that good, had a field day. He went off against the Cyclones, and he was killing it on deep passes. I think 5 of 7 on deep balls, 20 yards or more through the air. Jarrett Dagey's not known for being a deep ball threat. The West Virginia offense was able to pick up chunk plays through the air last week. So it'd be nice for Casey Thompson and these Texas receivers to find a way to do that. They've been pretty inconsistent, though, in terms of deep production this year through the passing game. So tough matchup. Iowa State's a good team. They're a solid team. I mentioned how good they are in their building. Brock Purdy, 14-1 at home in his career. That might be conference games. I should have double-checked that. But Iowa State does have a 9-game home conference winning streak. So that's a tough place to play. They hate Texas. Everybody hates Texas. They're going to be amped up with the Longhorns coming to town. And I mentioned it at the start of the video. This could be Texas's last, I don't want to say ever trip, but last trip to Ames for the foreseeable future. We don't know when the Longhorns are leaving the Big 12. As of now, it's 2025, but it could happen before then. I think it will happen before then. So could be the last time these two teams meet at Jack Trice for a while. Iowa State knows that. They're going to be amped up and ready to go. Special teams, I will say this. Iowa State has struggled on special teams this year. Their kicker's really good, but their punter has been terrible. They're actually pulling a Texas and making their kicker their punter, hoping that's going to help. But in that Baylor game where they lost by 2, they gave up a kickoff return touchdown in that one, and Baylor had a big punt return late that set up the deciding score that gave them the win in Waco. So special teams may be an area where Texas can take advantage. Texas has been pretty good on special teams this year, and then they try to fake punt on 4th and 11 last week. So I don't know how confident I am in the special teams unit for the Longhorns right now, but maybe an area where this game can be decided tomorrow. Prediction time. I'm going Iowa State. I'm picking Iowa State to win 31-24. I don't have confidence in Texas right now. I think this team is mentally broken at this point. They're incredibly fragile. And once again, even if they go out to a big lead tomorrow, I don't have any confidence or faith that they're going to be able to hold on to it. So Iowa State's defense is good. I don't think this is a crazy shootout. I think the Cyclones win, and I guess technically cover 31-24, my prediction. And that means the Longhorns would lose their 4th straight game for the first time in, 5 years, 6 years? And, of course, a loss would drop Texas under 500 on the season. Goes without saying. I hope I'm wrong, but I have no faith in this Texas football team right now. It pains me to say. Basketball season starts on Tuesday, but hopefully the Longhorns can find a win. We'll still talk plenty of UT football on this channel, regardless of how tomorrow goes down. What are your score predictions? Comment below with your thoughts, concerns, optimism, pessimism. What are you thinking? Texas and Iowa State would love to hear from you guys. I do appreciate the continued love and support. Please like this video if you haven't yet. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. And tap the notification bell as well so you're always informed when I drop new content. And you can listen to me on the radio in Houston, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5 every weekday from 3 to 7 p.m. If you're outside the listening area, ESPN975.com. That's the place to go. All right, guys. Appreciate the continued love and support. Hook 'em horns. Until next time, y'all stay safe. Y'all stay healthy. And hook 'em.